My name's Tom Hucker. I'm the Vice President of the Montgomery County Council. You all know the ongoing COVID-19 emergency has affected our ways of life in incredibly profound ways that none of us predicted, even a few weeks ago. Our everyday tasks, like going to the grocery store, are more burdensome and stressful for many residents. You all are having your distance learning through the school system, which is closed, obviously. And I've heard from so many constituents in the last few weeks who are facing housing uncertainty as the crisis continues, who don't know where their rent is coming from, didn't know on April 1st and don't know on May 1st. Many need assistance with unemployment benefits. Many have relatives in nursing homes and group homes that they're very concerned about, or in the trailer park in Germantown and other places where we have many people in concentrated housing. So many people have faced loss of income or food insecurity. You saw we have 6 million unemployment claims, 10 times what we've ever had nationally, and other people are struggling more silently with stress and isolation and anxiety. Our domestic violence has gone up almost 50%, and domestic disturbances as well. Our gun sales are up dramatically. There's all kinds of, I think, silent challenges that the society is facing that really haven't gotten nearly as much coverage as the economy and the public health crisis. So in order to reach out to community members, we've been hosting weekly town halls on different issues. And that has helped to ensure that members of the community are aware of the resources that are available in Montgomery County. And it's really helped to show people that we live in a caring community. It's helped to make people feel connected and reinforce the message that we're going to get through this crisis together. The idea for this town hall tonight was really brought to me by Lynn Harris, who many of you know because she was the immediate past president of the Montgomery County Council of the Parent-Teacher Association. She used to work with me and Dave in Annapolis when I was a state delegate, and she organized this event and spent many, many hours organizing it. It's an especially powerful time to hear from students because you might not know that this week is National Student Leadership Week. It's always good to hear from students, especially when we're about to make any decisions that impact them in any way. But this is an especially apt time to hear from students because you all have so many powerful and creative and effective ideas that help us to make better policy. And I, very much relate to what I feel like you're going through now. I was a student activist who spent really all my time in high school and college fighting for many social causes and trying to get a better response from our government. And I've continually felt like if I stay in touch with students, I get a lot better ideas than if I just look at our neighborhood listserv or other things. So we're going to hear from many of our student leaders tonight, their thoughts and their reflections and questions and their creative ideas about what has made them successful in their advocacy and how they continue to move their policies forward during this time of social distancing and isolation. And I want to touch on their experience with distance learning. We did a whole town hall on this with officials from the school system and Nate, but we haven't heard from enough students. We want to hear what's working, what could improve, where the gaps are, what we've learned since the first week a few weeks ago, and we want to hear your ideas for enhancing the school connections. I see it firsthand as an MCPS parent with children in second grade and kindergarten at Rolling Terrace, but I really want to hear about your experiences in middle school and high school as well. We know you're the closest to so many of these challenges, and we really want to hear your voice more now than ever. So we'll be taking questions from student listeners, and students, if you send in a question, please indicate if it's for one particular panelist or for an organization or if it's general to the group. This is not our first town hall, as I mentioned, but we are still learning our way through this, so please be patient with us if we have any technical glitches or other moving parts. We're working to get in touch with so many people as we can, as many people as we can without staffing and doing this from our home. So thank you, Jill, for all your help with this. Thanks to Lynn for her help. Thanks to Dave for setting this up. Thanks to Nate for being here again. And with that, let me introduce you to tonight's terrific moderator, Ananya Tadakanda. Ananya is a former student board member of the Board of Education, and she's a fantastic ally and leader. Ananya, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Tom, for convening this virtual student town hall. I think there's no better way to celebrate National Student Leadership Week than talking to and learning from so many wonderful, powerful leaders, student leaders. I'm so excited to see so many familiar faces, but also to see so many students who I haven't necessarily met in the past who have gotten engaged in student leadership in the recent past. I think that if there's any time to really show the youth voice and what we are capable of and why we do the advocacy we do, now is really the time. And I want to remind everyone that's here today that to be in this place where we can advocate on behalf of our peers is truly a place of privilege. So we should really think about the students who we represent today, why we advocate on their behalf, and how we can best embody their voices. So with that, I'd like to say, Tom, you yourself are a very successful and experienced advocate, and you're also an MCPS parent, so please feel free to chime in anytime with any insight that you may have to share. So before we start, I'd like to introduce our current SMOB, Nate Tinvite, who is joining us tonight. Nate is a senior at John F. Kennedy High School, and he was elected last April by students across the county to serve as student board member. And next year, he'll be headed to Cornell University. So I will turn it over to Nate.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ananya, and thank you, Tom, as well, for having me. I want to directly piggyback off of the words of Ananya right now, where this is not a time to stop organizing online, digitally. We have platforms where we're able to continue echoing our voices and making sure that those in power really hear from us, the constituents and the voters, especially as students and as young people, as we continue to spearhead a lot of the movements that are happening nationally today. Before I dive deep into that, I did want to say thank you to the students, the panelists, the journalists, and audience members as well for being here. This is a evening in the middle of a random day, but your participation here truly shows that we do have an engaged forefront, an engaged body of people who are willing to really fight for what we're passionate about. So I really appreciate being here as well. And if it's my 2 cents that I'm able to give to you all, it's that we have a tremendous opportunity to unite around so many of our common values, around things that we believe in, and really push our platform and our vision for whatever we see happening right now to our leaders. So through town halls like this with Councilmember Tom Hucker, through email streams that we can give to members of the board, through other policymakers, we're able to just continue sharing our voices. One thing that I've seen happen, for example, over the past few weeks is a lot of organizing for politicians or other political candidates through social media. A lot of people who are actually emailing the Board of Education on climate change and Earth Day, which is today, and so many other things. So I did want to kick it back to Ananya to make sure that she introduces our panelists today. I appreciate you all having me.
Thank you so much, Nate, for that introduction and for framing the conversation. It's so nice to hear a voice that's been so engaged over the past year in the direct work. Our student board member, as you all can probably imagine, that role is very near and dear to my heart, and I believe it's very important to ensure that we preserve that the role and the capacity that it has. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce the student participants, journalists, candidates, and organization representatives who are here today, and thank them for being here, and also inform all the attendees on what area these student advocates specifically are focused on. So I will start with MCR, or the Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association. This is a countywide coalition of all the student governments across the district. So we have all 25 member high schools. representing student advocacy perspectives. So we have Sachi Sakaniwa from Einstein High School and Helena Aitanfisu from Richard Montgomery High School. From Moco for Change, we have Claire Jalilo and Nikita Balajapalli. Claire is from Richard Montgomery High School, and Nikita is from Clarksburg High School. From Moco Pride, we have Uma Fox, who's from Richard Montgomery High School. From Youth Creating Change, we have Olivia Japong. From Moco Student DMV Alliance for Immigration Advocacy, we have Lauren Raskin and Andrew Soika, and that's one that I'm just hearing about, and that sounds wonderful. Thank you for your work. From the Minority Scholars Program, we have Summer Hajamad, and she's from Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. And I apologize, let me take a minute to go back and acknowledge that the students with the Immigration Advocacy Organization are both from Poolesville High School. For students towards equity in public schools, we have Avery Smedley from Einstein High School and Sonia Rashkoven from Walter Johnson High School. And from Moco Students on Climate, we have Sorish Day and Luca Uterwuga, and they are from Walter Johnson High School and Einstein High School. So we have 15 of our 25 high schools represented here on our webinar today, which is wonderful. And we look forward to hearing all of your voices and perspectives as you come from such diverse backgrounds. Next, we will have our SMOB candidates speak about their, give a little bit of an introduction and speak about their vision and how they feel about this issue. So just for the purpose of going in alphabetical order, we'll start with Nick Asante, who is a junior at Richard Montgomery High School.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nick, like Ananya just mentioned. And personally for me, I'm really happy we're hosting this. Student advocacy is something that I've been very passionate about for many years. I first got involved in 4th grade, serving with my own school SGA, and I've worked with a lot of the organizations here, primarily MCR. I've also had the chance to work with MCJC, which is the middle school version of MCR. And during this entire time with our quarantine, I've been social distancing. I'm hoping everyone else is as well. And I've been working on adapting my campaign to what's currently going on, figuring out how to use social media and ensuring that all the information is being passed along to students who may not have access to social media and different outlets during this time. And I think quarantine has really shown the importance of ensuring that our education is equitable for all students. And so one thing I really hope to push for next year is ensuring that all students have equitable access to technology. For instance, through a system in which we roll out Chromebooks to every student at the beginning of the year that they get to take home and use for assignments that would come with their own Wi-Fi hotspots and things like that. And then also figuring out outlets for students to voice their opinion no matter where they are in the county, and ensure that their voice and their priorities are heard by the board table, and that the issues that they're passionate about are the ones that the board is also passionate about. So yeah.
Thank you, Nick, for your introduction. I apologize. I think my friend Nate here just told me that I missed an introduction. From the Minority Scholars Program, we have Summer Hajamad. She goes to Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. I think I said it, but I'm not 100% sure, and I want to make sure that I did. So, and then we'll also have our next SMOB candidate now, Vicki Kidder, who is also a junior at Magruder High School. Say a few words.
Hey guys, like Ananya just said, I'm Vicki Kidder. I'm a junior at Magruder High School. And I just first want to start by saying Happy Earth Day. If you haven't gotten fresh air in a while, I suggest going outside your backyard, just staying sane through this time. And also, I know that distance learning is probably really hectic and really difficult for everybody, but I think MCPS is doing a really great job. And happy Student Leadership Week. I think this town hall is a great way to capture the student voice across our county. And I just want to say that I hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy, and staying home most importantly. And I don't know if there's any healthcare workers out there, essential workers, but thank you guys so much. I know everybody in here really appreciates what you're doing. And I know grading and the grading policy this semester or this quarter is really hectic for everybody to kind of grasp and understand. And a lot of people left school when they were studying for retakes and things like that. So something I'd like to push for is a pass-fail system for the whole semester, just getting right off the bat. And we were supposed to talk about our priorities. So I just want to say that some of my priorities as SMOB are improving mental health, improving infrastructure, and closing the opportunity and achievement gap. And since it's Earth Day, I think that MCPS should definitely be more cognizant of its carbon footprint. That includes geothermal heating and electric school buses, and also about equity and access. We've seen in a time like this that it's very difficult for every student to have access to internet and have the tools provided to them to be able to get to learn online and complete their assignments. So that's why I'd like to make sure that every student has access to a Chromebook or an iPad to be able to learn during difficult times like this especially. And that's pretty much my 2 cents. I hope you guys are all staying safe, and thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Vicki and Nick, for sharing. So the MCPS SMOB election has been postponed to May 20th. And so I'd like to strongly encourage all of our students who are here to definitely participate in that. And in fact, if you're eligible, I'll also put in another plug for Student Voice. The MCR SGA elections end at 8 p.m. tonight. So if you're an eligible voter, please do go ahead and take a moment to voice who you believe should lead MCR this upcoming year. Because we want people as representative as possible in all of those roles. So now I will turn the mic over to Helena from MCR to talk a little bit about the SMOB election and the details of that.
Thank you, Nanya. So our Special Elections Committee has been working hard to make sure everyone has access to our elections, and that meant postponing it to May 20th, as you've said. And it'll be online as usual. If we're still in distance learning by that point, it'll be accessible from home. If by some miracle we're back in school, it'll take place in school online. And just to iterate again, our Special Elections Committee and our advisor, Mrs. Cherry, have worked really hard to make sure that the integrity of the election is maintained and it's as secure and equitable as possible. So if you're eligible to vote, please make sure to check your email. By May 20th, you should receive an email with the link to the ballot and your individualized password.
Wonderful. Thank you for that overview. And we're looking forward to that election coming up. That is truly one of the biggest way Montgomery County demonstrates our commitment to student voice, is empowering them with the ability to elect someone who makes decisions about our school system, one of the largest in the nation. So I'm very excited for that. So now we're going to get started on our presenters, the main portion of this town hall. So I'm just going to read the presenter, the organization, and the presenters can go ahead and give their talk. So we're going to start with the Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association, MCR SGA.
Before I let Sachi take it away, I just want to add about SMOB elections. Everyone should check their mcpsmd.net email accounts to find information about the candidates, the Meet the Candidate video, in order to make a truly informed decision.
Sorry, I think I was muted, guys. My bad. Thanks for that important reminder, Helena. My name is Sachi Sakaniwa, and I'm happy to kick off the Student Organizations Roundtable. I'm the MCR SGA Chief of Staff. During this period of distance learning, our organization is focusing on the following priorities: First, expanding access to resources, because all resources provided to students during school should still be accessible for those who need them. To do this, we are planning a fundraiser in hopes of donating supplies or food, most likely to a food bank. If you want to help, please reach out to Robert Wagen, our MCR treasurer, for ways to get involved. Another priority of ours is advocating for equitable policies to support marginalized student groups, because equity for students who don't have the structural support for academic success at home shouldn't stop them from being successful. To do this, we helped advocate for the adoption of a universal credit, no credit system, and Zoe Tesheva, our community relations co-director, has launched a change.org petition, which has gotten over 1,500 signatures. If you want to help, check out that petition on change.org so MCPS knows how we feel as students. Lastly, we want to emphasize communicating efficiently and offering opportunities for feedback and input so we know what the students' voices are. It's important to ensure students are not getting left behind without those normal channels of information. To do this, we're distributing concise information and graphics in all mediums, print, text, social media, etc., in many languages, and participating in work groups to measure student input on policy options. During the shutdown, we're actively using social media platforms like Instagram. If you follow our MCRSGA or our MCPS SLU, you know that we've been doing Insta takeovers by members of our executive board, officers, staff, and sponsors. If you want to help, please reach out to your local student leaders to get in touch with our MCR officers, myself, for more opportunities and to share your ideas about offering input and feedback during this period of distance learning. Thank you, Ananya.
Thank you, MCR, for your wonderful explanation of your priorities, and we look forward to seeing your advocacy and continued effort on students' behalf. Next, we'll have the Minority Scholars Program.
Hello all, my name is Summer Hajhamad, and I'm going to be the MSP representative today. So this year, MSP has had 4 main focuses that we are mainly focusing on, as we believe that they encourage the existence of the achievement gap. And our main goal is, of course, to definitely bridge that gap. So the 4 being ESOL isolation, stereotypes and microaggression, lack of diversity in curriculum, and lack of diversity in staffing as well. Thus, we held teacher workshops that focused on having teachers recognize their unconscious biases. And we also had held our annual retreat that focused on educating students on these topics so they're able to also pass the torch of knowledge. As all these initiatives are carried out by our students, especially our interns, as we believe in the power of student voice. However, sadly, due to the lack of support and funding of our MSP summer internship, we might have an issue continuing it this year. The interns get trained in understanding the opportunity gap, race and equity, community organizing, and leadership skills. They help train our MCPS staff, and they also help educate our MCPS students. It is quite essential, honestly. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the internship during this last summer. And I assure you that it has most definitely helped play a role in helping me develop into the leader I am today. Nevertheless, even through our hardships, we persevere and continue with our work. Hence, we are currently planning our final task force meeting, which we used to have once a month. In the meeting, students from all over the county and different different MSPs gather to discuss ways in which we can help bring the end of the opportunity gap. There is so much beauty in holding these meetings, as in them there is actual diversity. As after Einstein High School joined us this year, we were officially existing in every MCPS high school, and also a few middle schools. We are hoping that through this, students will find at least a glimpse of joy in knowing that we are still fighting, which we are hoping motivates them to join us back into the fight of equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that detailed report on the state of MSP right now and the priorities. The Minority Scholars Program has grown significantly over the last more than 10 years that it's been in the county. And we're so grateful for such a powerful student voice in that aspect. So committed to equity for all in MCPS schools. So thank you. We're gonna move on to our next organization now. We have Moco for Change. I don't think they need an introduction really, so turn it over to them.
Thanks, Ananya. So my name is Claire Galileo. I'm one of the co-presidents of Moco Students for Change. I'm also here with Nikita, if you want to introduce yourself as well. Nikita, are you there? Okay, well, I can just keep going then. I'll see if Nikita's having technical issues.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm okay now. I'm sorry about that. I was muted. My name is Nikita Balajapalli. I'm one of the branch leaders for Clarksburg High School and a member of Moco for Change.
Yeah, so both of us are going to be representing the organization today. As for who we are an organization here in Montgomery County that promotes political engagement amongst our youth. We this year have prioritized, I'd say 2 issues have been our biggest focus this year, which is gun violence prevention, which is the issue that our group was founded around, and also the MCPS district-wide boundary analysis is something we've been extremely vocal in since the very beginning, and are continuing activism and advocacy around. So you can go to our social media or our website to see a little bit more about where we stand on those issues. With gun violence prevention this year, we've really shifted a lot of our attention to the local and state level. We did a gun violence prevention lobby day earlier on in the year in February, which was super successful. We had over 50 students from MCPS head to Annapolis and get to talk to some people in the General Assembly about 4 gun violence prevention pieces of legislation. And we want to do more things like that in the future, but obviously right now we have a lot of challenges that we did not anticipate with the COVID-19 epidemic. And so with that moving forward, we've definitely had to shift our attention to our social media and means of virtual organizing. Obviously, we've already had quite a bit of time to develop our networks and platforms on social media, Instagram and Twitter. And something that we've recently done is launch a program called the Moco Alumni Pairing Program, which is something a little bit different than what we've done in the past, because it's obviously not inherently political in nature, but basically what it is something we've done to provide a little bit of comfort and normalcy to the lives of seniors in Montgomery County. What we've done is we've created a vast network of alumni from Montgomery County who can then talk to current seniors about their prospective colleges to sort of help them in the process of picking a college, because they obviously can't go places in person to visit and go to new student days. So it's just something that we've heard has really helped in the college decision-making process. And so Nikita, you could talk a little bit about how to get involved, sort of
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, entry points and what it's like to be here.
Awesome. So as a school leader, Moco for Change, we normally just try and expand Moco for Change to our schools and the students in our schools who aren't able to, who want to be more involved, not only in their school, but also in their county. And like Claire said, as a school leader, we've sort of shifted over to digital campaigns, more using our social media and making sure everyone is plugged in and engaged in what, in our ideas for internet advocating. There are a lot of ways to get involved in Moco for Change. The first thing you can do is DMing Moco for Change's Instagram, and also you can look on our website to look at the school branches near you. We currently have 22 branches, and another way is also just emailing us just to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moco for Change, for that brief introduction. Next, we have Moco Pride, speaking a little bit about their priorities.
Awesome, thank you, Ananya. So I'm Uma Fox. I'm the founder and president of Moco Pride, which is Montgomery County's Association of LGBTQ+ students. We're an organization that prioritizes the advocacy, community, and connection of the LGBTQ community in Montgomery County. And so our current big priorities are first and foremost, making intersectional LGBTQ+ inclusive curriculum changes. So this year, due to Moco Pride's advocacy, MCPS became the first district in the nation to have a standardized LGBTQ+ studies curriculum available at high schools. So that was an exciting first step, but we're also interested in continuing the role of curriculum changes in terms of health classes, literature classes, and social studies to make sure that our education system is reflective of its student body and discusses its student body's diverse experiences. We also, a big priority for us at the state and the local level is updating policy and legislative changes to make sure they're transgender and gender fluid protective. And so we're essentially advocating for a process for name change that's much more simplified this year. Often students want to change their name to align with their gender, but it's difficult to find the forms, or they're inaccessible, or they're not in their native language. We also see that there's a continuation of transgender discriminatory laws in the Maryland state level in terms of laws like transgender panic, where people are able to use, if they murder a transgender individual, they're able to potentially walk free because of an idea of panic when this occurs. So we've worked with the organization Free State Justice at the state level to ensure that that does not continue in Maryland and that that policy is banned. We're also looking at comprehensive bias training reform and education regarding LGBTQ+ issues. And so we continue to see that oftentimes LGBTQ+ students have the highest rates of reports of bullying incidents at schools, but oftentimes teachers aren't equipped with enough resources to understand what to do in these situations, or they don't hear it from a student perspective. So we're hoping to work with MCPS, and we've already worked with MCPS Athletics to create better resources for teachers to learn about combating LGBTQ+ discrimination. We've also helped students and teachers attend a Human Rights Campaign education conference so they can hear from the experts about the need for LGBTQ+ training and anti-bias training. Of course, during COVID, we've had to adjust our strategy like everyone, especially because LGBTQ+ students have some of the highest rates, unfortunately, of being in either compromised households or in households where they don't feel safe to be their authentic selves. And so we've really prioritized that community aspect of our group, where we've created a program called Moco Pride Speaks Out While Inside. So every week we have an opportunity for students to come together for something either fun or informative. Last week it was a documentary about intersectional activism in the 1960s that students could watch together virtually. This week we are both piloting a social media takeover for Day of Silence this Friday. And then we also will be starting a book club this week to discuss LGBTQ+ literature with students via Zoom. And then next week we will be having a mental health forum with LGBTQ+ mental health experts so students can get resources for this trying mental health time. In terms of joining our work, both in the future, we're opening our applications for next year in the next 2 weeks. But then we also have a rolling applications program, so you can always DM us at Moco Pride on Twitter, Instagram, or email us at mocolgbtqassociation@gmail.com. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. The next organization we have speaking is the DMV Student Alliance for Immigration Advocacy.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Raskin, and I'm a sophomore at Poulsville High School. I'm the founder and president of the DMV Student Alliance for Immigration Advocacy. And Andrew is also on here if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, my name is Andrew Soika. I'm a junior at Poulsville High School, and I am the co-founder and vice president of the DMV Student Alliance for Immigration Advocacy.
So the DC, Maryland, Virginia Student Alliance for Immigration Advocacy is a student-led organization which works to advocate for immigrant rights both on a federal, local, and state level. The DMV SAIA consists of motivated and passionate students of all grade levels who understand how important it is to fight for Black, Brown, and immigrant communities during this immigration crisis. By putting pressure on government bodies, we're fighting for comprehensive immigration reform while also attempting to break the bias towards immigrants, specifically those of Hispanic descent. We're also fighting for educational equity in Maryland, DC, and Virginia schools. So our organization started fairly recently at the beginning of this school year. However, it is rapidly growing. We currently have 17 schools represented in Montgomery County, as well as 3 schools in the District of Columbia and 1 chapter in a Virginia school. We are also currently affiliated with the NAACP, the Black and Brown Coalition, and Casa de Maryland. If anyone is interested in joining, I would highly recommend hopping on now. We have a lot of really exciting projects coming up. So I would recommend either contacting me or Andrew or DMing our Instagram account, which is at Moco Immigration Advocates. So amid this public health crisis, it has become alarmingly clear that the effects of COVID-19 exacerbate long existing racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic inequities, especially those that pertain to our educational system. Existing structural flaws and barriers facing communities of color facilitates immense learning loss. For these reasons, it is the utmost priority of the DMV Student Alliance to ensure that Black and Brown students do not fall through the cracks of inequity. So for this reason, we asked the Board of Education and the Montgomery County Council to make an investment in education, by doing so making an investment in our county's economy and prosperity. In addition, we ask that they invest monetary resources into relief funding for individuals in need. This is an extremely trying time for everyone, but I think we must understand that this is insurmountably difficult for Black, Brown, and students of low socioeconomic status. And I think that's why we need to put much more emphasis on them during this time and making sure that they get through it without any long-term effects.
Yeah, and to continue, so we've actually used this time to expand. Like Lauren said, we have 17 branches in Montgomery County, 1 in Virginia, and multiple in DC. And we've also used it to expand our network with other organizations who are trying to reach the same goal. So currently we partner with the Black and Brown Coalition for Educational Equity and Excellence, which is an organization based in Montgomery County that essentially works to ensure that Black, Brown, and economically disadvantaged communities have access and can receive the same educational resources regardless of their circumstances. We're also working on written testimony. So we're also working on creating a testimony that we can submit to the Montgomery County Board of Education and the County Council, advocating for more resources to go to extended learning if needed, and relief funding for low-income families throughout the county. We're also, just like MCR, we're working on a food drive. So with Casa de Maryland, which is a nonprofit organization that has branches throughout the DMV area, so in Virginia and Pennsylvania as well, that works to advocate for local immigrants and Latino communities. We're also working on a Know Your Rights seminar in August with the NAACP that would essentially tell attendees their rights in the case of an attempted arrest, and it would also educate bystanders what to do if they witness an unlawful arrest. Yes, I'll toss back to Lauren for the last part.
So I think Andrew hit pretty much everything. And then the other thing that we've done was distribute a survey to students in Montgomery County Public Schools. We received over 200 responses from high school students from all of the Montgomery County high schools. And I believe we'll talk about those findings in a later part of the seminar. So.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to have Nate answer our first couple of questions from some of the attendees of this event. So we're going to start with, so I'm looking at the questions here, and there are a couple on the pass-fail policy. And so the first, I'll ask the first part of the question now and the second part later. But the question that Nate could probably best answer is what pass-fail means and why the school system is taking up that approach.
Sure. So so Montgomery County, as you all know, implemented a pass and complete framework for fourth quarter, and they are finalizing their plans for how it will look for semester grading. But at the moment for pass and complete, the reason why they went with that framework is because with an incomplete, it'll trigger a plan and timeline for opportunities to resume learning, meet curricular requirements, and earn a grade pass credit in the course. So that is what we've transitioned to for this fourth quarter. And again, MCPS is working with our union leaders, with staff, with everybody involved to make sure that there is a smooth transition to this. And we're definitely benchmarking with higher education institutions, with other districts around us, Fairfax, Prince George's, Baltimore, et cetera, to make sure that this is a smooth plan. And this also begins our fourth week of online learning, and we've been continuing this process. And this week, MCPS online learning model includes independent and self-paced work in literacy and math, and pre-recorded lessons in art, music, and physical education for elementary students, and so forth. And so we've been working on that. We've also been distributing Chromebooks at our meal distribution sites, and to date, to the date of April 20th, we've distributed 941,224 meals. And that's a really, really large number, almost 1 million meals. And so this is a new territory for all of us. It's a new territory not only with the upcoming election, as we've talked about, but with food, with technology, with curriculum, and so forth. And these are some of the plans that we've been working on so far. So I hope that takes care of the first question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate. And the second question is regarding when we may return to school and where MCPS is on conversations about that.
Sure. So currently, the state superintendent has announced that on April 17th, the state superintendent of schools, Karen Solomon, announced that all Maryland public schools will be closed until May 15th. But obviously, for MCPS staff and all stakeholders, we can expect more closures, or we are preparing for the worst situation if that puts that in best terms. And this is one thing that I've heard amongst this. Sorry, cut out. This is the one thing that I've heard amongst discussions with MCPS central office staff as they're preparing for what Fairfax and the state of Virginia is prepared for, which is closures all the way up until the end of the year, but distance learning to put it in summary.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nate. So now we'll return to our student organization introductions. Next, we have Moco students on climate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luca Utrolga, kind of a long last name. I'm a co-founder of Moco Students on Climate, and I'm here with Suresh Day from WJ. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Suresh.
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Suresh Day. I'm a freshman at Walter Johnson, and I'm also one of the co-founders of Moco Students on Climate.
Okay, so Moco Students on Climate is a student-led advocacy group consisting of passionate Moco student activists that work to push for sensible policy that ambitiously addresses the climate crisis. We have several priorities, and we've been working to address those this year since we were founded. So our three main priorities are policy change, people power, and political power. Regarding policy change, we recommend that the MCPS Board of Education passes sensible climate policy by accepting the policies outlined in our online petition, which you can find on our Instagram account or on our website. For people power, we are working to build an informed student community that understands the importance of revolutionary local action in addressing the climate crisis and is ready to organize in order to solve it. For political power, we've been focusing on building political power in the county by partnering with other ambitious climate groups such as Sunrise and supporting candidates that are strong in climate. We recently endorsed Lynn Harris for Board of Education, and we're sorry that she wasn't able to be here tonight. And making sure that we vote out politicians who consistently vote against our futures. This year, we created a petition that received over 500 signatures on change.org. Then we moved that petition over to the Action Network and it received 400 of them there. So around 900 in total. We also initiated a petition rally at the MCPS Board of Education on September 27th, where we delivered our petition and gathered around 70 to 90 adults and student advocates from around the county. We also led students to the September 20th Washington, D.C. climate strike, and that was a really impactful event. And Suresh, would you like to go next?
Yes. So then our strategies for change, the first of which is to influence the system, and that involves pressuring them through means of our petition, as Luca mentioned. So right now our main priority is pressuring Montgomery County Public Schools to take much more aggressive climate action in regards to how they source their energy, their buses, climate change education, and respecting student activism. And then we also seek to garner support from other organizations, especially ones that are led by adults, because some of those are more well established and more long lasting. So having those alliances can be very helpful, and also providing detailed explanations to our demands, which we did by creating an advocacy brief last September, which is you can find on our website. And I'll hand it back to Luca.
And I just want to let you guys know how you can get involved with Moco on Climate. As Moco for Change mentioned, it's very simple. You can simply DM us on Instagram or email us on our website, which is also linked on our Instagram page. And I'll move on to what we've been doing during quarantine to advance our agenda. The first of which is two of our members, Eleanor Clemens Cope and her sister Rosie Clemens Cope, spoke at a joint Extinction Rebellion Moco on Climate event about the necessity of taking local action yesterday at the MCPS Board of Education. We've also partnered with Sunrise Movement to initiate several Earth Day actions, including calling Senator Cardin to demand that he co-sponsor the Green New Deal, and sending mass emails to the Board of Education supporting the petition demands, as Nate Tinvite just mentioned. We've also been working with adults and especially politicians to come up with new ideas for how we're going to implement disruptive actions and take action after quarantine. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. The next organization that we have speaking is Students Towards Equity in Public Schools.
Hi, I'm Avery. I'm one of the co-founders and lead organizers of Students Toward Equitable Public Schools. We started this year around kind of like the boundary analysis, and our priorities were to actually like implement changes, like tangible changes to our boundaries, because as we've seen, WXY did do an analysis, but they didn't give recommendations as to how things should be changed, or any like recommendations to make tangible boundaries. So we want to make sure that that's actually something that happens. We want to make sure that resources are given equitably across schools, hence the name, and we're working on closing the achievement gap. But in the wake of this pandemic, we've changed our priorities a little bit with a lens on like equity in like this COVID crisis. So I'll hand it over to Sonia just to explain like how we've adapted to that.
Yeah. Hey guys. First of all, just clarification, I go to Walt Whitman, not WJ, but it's completely fine. And we're basically, of course, it's a struggle for everybody now with this pandemic, and we hope everyone is safe and keeping social distance. And what we've been doing is supporting pass incomplete system for entire semester, which was created, the petition is created by one of our members, Zoe Tishayev, so you should definitely check it out. And we recognize that teachers also struggle a lot at this time, so we want to see MCPS supporting them as well. And we are very thankful for MCPS and how they handled the food distribution. Nate, the number is incredible, and we're thankful for so many people who are supported, but we want more open data on like Chromebook distribution and especially Wi-Fi hotspot distribution, because that's definitely one of the big things that makes online education not as equitable as it should be. And for anyone who want to get involved, our Instagram and Twitter are Moco Steps. And we have a website where we have a student blog on, and we have a lot of diverse opinions from all across the county. And you should definitely write for us, so just DM. So any final words, Avery?
If I can add, also we have a student petition just to show like student support for the boundary analysis. So if you're interested in signing this, we've got it on our Instagram, our website, and as Sonia mentioned, if you're interested in joining, you can speak to me or Sonia. We've got an email, an Instagram, a website, or if you just want to show support but you don't like necessarily have time to join the organization, signing the petition is much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final student organization that will be speaking today is Youth Creating Change.
Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Japong. I'm a junior at James Hebert Blake High School, and I'm the outreach coordinator for YCC, or Youth Creating Change. So YCC began 2 years ago, and it is a countywide social justice organization devoted to elevating the efforts of all of our wonderful student activists. I actually see a couple of our fellows here, Luca, Avery, and Uma. Hi. So we work to support various student justice activists through comprehensive trainings and curricula like best practices for social media activism and ways to grow your effort through outreach, how to apply for grants and run successful fundraisers, etc. We also have mentorship. We have monthly sessions at Richard Montgomery High School, and we have a mentorship program where we connect student activists with seasoned social justice activists like Ms. Harris. And we also provide grants to our student fellows up to $2,000 usually. And a big part of YCC is fostering connections between student social justice activists and their partners in activism, peers, and prominent elected officials to expand our activist networks and elevate their causes, because we know that an activist network is oftentimes their best asset. And we're generally working towards creating a more inclusive, tolerant, informed, and inspired Montgomery County. And so we've kind of had to change our operations due to this COVID-19 pandemic, as all of you have. Normally, we would hold an annual social change fair as kind of a culminating event to celebrate all of our fellows' hard work during this time. That's held at Richard Montgomery. We have normally over 100 people in attendance, and we've even had Councilmember Hucker as a keynote speaker in the past. And this is an opportunity for all of our students to interact with various interested community members through our social change fair. It's kind of like a science fair in which our students would have a gallery presentation and get to interact one-on-one with people interested in their initiatives and engage in meaningful dialogue with elected officials and their peers who are completing like-minded projects on themed panels. And then afterwards have a kind of a networking, brainstorming debrief session where oftentimes they would connect with interested peers or rising social justice activists who may help further their cause or be inspired to take up a like-minded initiative of their own. But given our necessary stay-at-home orders, we've had to adjust, and now we're hosting 3 online social justice panels via Zoom. So we're going to have a Sparking Discussions panel that is centered on projects that kind of advance necessary dialogue around social justice issues. So that's taking place April 26th from 3 to 4 p.m. Then we also have a social group empowerment and advocacy panel. That one's focused on discussions surrounding traditionally underrepresented social groups and projects addressing them. That's going to be hosted May 2nd from 3 to 4 p.m. And then lastly, a panel with fellows whose projects are centered on addressing and closing our opportunity gap. That's May 3rd from 3 to 4 p.m. If you're interested in attending these panels, and I know lots of your organizations or organizations represented here are going to have members speaking on these panels, you guys are more than welcome to visit our Instagram and Twitter. That's at cuah.ycc, at cua.ycc, to find our Google Forms link to RSVP for that. And then in addition, in place of our social change fair, we're going to be highlighting all of our fellows and celebrating their hard work through a digital month of social change initiative. So almost every day in May, we're going to be posting a profile or carousel of all of our fellows. So pictures of them in action, pictures of their leaders, and tagging them, and then including ways for interested parties to help with that cause and to connect with all of our fellows. And so we ask that during this time, a large part of YCC is elevating our students' causes through letting them interact with elected officials. And a lot of our elected officials have been quite active in the YCC social justice activism organization, just in general by attending our events or even helping mentor on our monthly sessions. So during this time, we ask that any legislation that's coming out of our wonderful fellows organizations or any of these social justice organizations, that you continue to validate all of our students' hard work and give them a solid audience and actually listen to their legislation, what they have to say. Something that might be on the agenda for YCC next year is actually creating legislation that would be drafted with cooperation from all of our fellows, something that our fellows are interested in jointly as a whole. And so we ask that other prominent student groups like those here, I know a lot of you guys are either in YCC yourselves or you have members who are YCC fellows working to garner support for your group's movement or garner funds to support your movement. We ask that you continue to support YCC by attending events, offering mentorship, publicizing our efforts, like doing things like attending our panels or checking out our Instagram and liking our fellows feature on our Month of Social Change posts. And then just, attending the, and if you want to get involved in YCC, again, a great way to do that is, normally we would have our social change conference, but again, because we can't do that, joining our Zoom panels or checking out our Instagram page. That's a great way to get connected with our fellows or become fellows yourselves. And then hopefully all of this will be cleared up by the fall, and so we'll be able to have our annual kickoff event. We'll get the details out to you guys later, but also at most of our Montgomery County public high schools, we have a YCC branch outreach coordinator, and so we will post on Instagram the names and possibly the contact information for them so you can get in touch with your branch coordinator, because I see some of our groups aren't represented at YCC. So if you're interested in becoming fellows, those are great mediums to start communicating with us. And thank you.
Hi, I can jump in here. I think the next part of our program will be taking questions from some of our from our student reporters. If you have a question you'd like to ask one of our student representatives, feel free to shoot me a message in the chat or just unmute your microphone. I think we lost our moderator.
Ananya, was her Wi-Fi kicked out? So hopefully she'll be back in a minute. Are you back, Ananya?
I'm back. I'm so sorry. My wife. But thank you to all of our wonderful student organizations for their wonderful summaries of the work they've been doing even through this crisis. We appreciate you. We are grateful for you. And we hope you continue that work and reach out, of course. I know Councilmember Hucker's office, Jill, are excellent resources who are willing to support students through all this time. So we are grateful for you as well. So now I'll turn it over to Councilmember Hucker to say a few words before we move on to allow our student journalists to drive our conversation.
Great, and I think we're just going to jump into questions from some of the student journalists.
Yeah, I was wondering maybe someone from Moco for Change or MSP or STEPS has input on this, but perspective, has MCPS done enough with Chromebook distribution and hotspot distribution to kind of address the inequities present because of online learning now and with the corona crisis?
I think I could take this or potentially hand this off to Steps, because I know that Sonia and Avery, you were sort of touching on this about how your focus has definitely shifted a lot to holding MCPS accountable and making sure that everything that students need is distributed during this time, and transparency and making sure that those things are actually getting done. So Avery or Sonia, do you think you could talk a little bit about like the information that you're hoping to see released from MCPS, or how that should be distributed?
Yeah.
Sure.
You can go ahead.
Okay, sure, I'll go. So basically, it's very important to see everyone be, in MCPS be covered equally, and your third grade, your third quarter, fourth quarter grade shouldn't be determined by do you have a Chromebook or a Wi-Fi hotspot at home. So we would really like to see how we do have a meal distribution number, right, around 1 million, which is incredible. But we also want to see how many Chromebooks were distributed and how many hotspots, so we can ensure that all students are covered equally.
And if I can just add on to that a little bit, also we'd like to see numbers such as like how many students are logging on and like what their experience has been with it, just to get like more transparency on that, to be able to really like make that analysis about like if things are being distributed equitably. Thanks for your question, Joel.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
Okay, if I could just hop onto this really quickly. So the DMV Student Alliance conducted a survey, as I mentioned earlier, up to 200 student responses representing all 25 high schools in Montgomery County. And one of the questions that we asked the students was, do you know of someone who does not have access to a working computer? And almost 30% of respondents said that either they themselves or someone they knew didn't have access to a working computer. And although that number may be small in comparison to like the rest of the 70%, that still goes to show you that there are students in Montgomery County who lack adequate access to technology, and that's simply not fair. Personally, and just representing the views of my organization, we feel like this time of learning and the grading is not really a measure of how well students can understand the material. It's a measure of how well they can transition into this period of online learning, how well they can transition into using the computer rather than traditional education, and how well they, even if they have access to the computer in the first place. So, which is why we wholeheartedly support the pass-fail system for quarter four, and also why we advocate for a pass-fail system for the entire semester.
Yeah, kind of to continue off of Lauren, we've heard stories of some students struggling with their Chromebooks, that they have had problems signing in and problems with receiving them from the county due to their own personal circumstances, which obviously they can't control. And also, again, with what Lauren said, we wholeheartedly congratulate the county for their work with creating the pass-fail for the fourth quarter, and we definitely support it for the third quarter as well. Almost 64% of, so actually part of our survey, we asked if people would support a pass-fail system, and this was before that we actually realized that the county would end up doing that. But 64% of people said that they agreed with it. So again, I have to congratulate the county for their work with that. But at the same time, more work has to be done to ensure that all students have equal chances to succeed during this closure.
Yeah, just adding on just a little bit. I really do appreciate the county's and the initiatives the county has taken for ensuring that all students have an equal chance in getting the amazing education that MCPS offers. But once again, it's also important to consider that the Chromebooks that they are receiving, there are some students who haven't ever had access to any computers or anything. So when you just give them a computer at home and sort of expect them to be able to navigate it on their own, it's really hard. But once again, it's understandable that the county is sort of just taking steps. But as it was mentioned earlier, there's still a lot more that could be done to ensure that all students, even when they are receiving those Chromebooks, are able to know how it works and are able to sort of read the language that it's sort of programmed to offer them. Because once again, we do have diversity within our county, diversity not only just, we also have diversity in languages, and some students are not very fluent with English, and it's important to consider our ESOL students and how they're going to be able to function the computers.
Could I shift gears to some of these other questions popping up in the chat? Is that all right with our moderators and other journalists?
But maybe the journalists that ask them can ask them themselves.
Yeah, I was about kind of the new credit, no credit system and changes to our education system. So one from the Clark-Burkell and the other one from you, Joelle, the Springbrook Blueprint. I have actually been sitting on a secondary grading reporting work group with the central office for the past year. And in our shift to distance learning, they've also shifted to looking into how it will impact students and taking input from student stakeholder groups as well as teachers, parents, central office staff, all stakeholders that go into giving students their grades. One of the things I'd like to say is that the Board of Education, council members, and what I can speak to from my experience with the central office work group is that they are still coming up with and working for us to make the framework clear and accessible. So regarding minimizing confusion, I think we are just going to have to let them adapt to this situation, and then they will give us the information as they have it. And then as for the question regarding pass and complete system and how it might be hard for students to motivate themselves, the idea about and the spirit behind pass and complete is not for the students who might find it hard to motivate themselves, but to help and support students who do not have the same academic support at home as they do at school. We just want to make sure that they don't get left behind and that they are not disadvantaged by the current distance learning situation.
Yeah, could I just jump onto that really quickly in that same question? I think there are two big factors that play in here. First and foremost, all of us around the world in both government and nonprofits, as many of us know, are kind of building this plane as it flies. And so there's a lot that's changing and there's a lot that's still being developed and it's still very dynamic. And so I think we're seeing that our learning system and information is coming out as it happens because we don't know what the next day will look like. We don't know what the next day's stats will look like, and we don't know how the situation is going to evolve and change. And then on the second point to Joel's question, I think this is a time where productivity isn't our main priority. I think it's not, students have a lot of opportunities and have possibilities to be involved and to feel productive for their personal needs. But I also think the purpose of this as we're living in a pandemic is not to be productive, but to be able to make it to the next day and to be able to have some kind of normalcy and mental stability, to feel a sense of mental equilibrium, and also just to feel supported by teachers and various MCPS staff through education and through this idea of normalcy.
Also, if I could just share something that was comforting to me in regards to the question of how colleges would view this switch to a pass-fail system. Colleges themselves have switched to a pass-fail system for this last semester, and that includes almost all colleges, including the very prestigious ones, the Ivy Leagues, I believe Stanford. And a lot of private schools in the DC area have also switched this pass-fail system. So this is not something that's just exclusive to Montgomery County. A lot of schools across the United States is making the switch because they understand that this is not a fair time of education or of grading. So I feel like they would be quite, and I know that they would be quite understanding if there's some sort of discrepancy on a student's transcript, because they would understand the circumstances. And then in regards to Joel's question, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, about the, I guess, the laziness. In the nicest way I can put this, I would say that that outlook is slightly ignorant. I just, myself and my organization feel very passionate about the fact that, as Uma said, this is just trying to get to the next day. This is trying to make sure that no student is left behind. And this is severely impacting Black and Brown communities. This is severely impacting students of low socioeconomic status. And we need to make sure that they're not left behind. And so that's why this pass-fail system is so integral, because not all students have the same opportunities as they might normally have in a normal setting. So.
Let's take a question from Ella. Can you unmute and ask your question?
Yes. So I was wondering if there's going to be some guidelines in place for all teachers on the amount of assignments that can be given, because each teacher is kind of taking into interpretation about the amount of assignments that should be given, and students are experiencing different workloads from each class.
Does anyone want to take that?
One thing I would say is that I don't think, to my knowledge, MCPS has given out any specific and explicit instruction on exactly how many assignments are appropriate to be giving during distance learning. So one thing that any student who's experienced kind of like an overwhelming workload could do is reach out to their school SGA, reach out to their classmates, and start a dialogue with their teachers or school community about what is appropriate. And especially if someone is going through kind of a particularly extenuating circumstance, these are the kinds of things that are not seeing the, not being dictated at the county level.
I would say, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read something from the superintendent that said that secondary education students could expect to receive 1 to 2 meaningful assignments assigned on the first day of each week. I know personally for me that hasn't been happening, and I would understand, especially for students in AP classes who might feel like they need a little more instruction, or whose teachers feel they need more instruction as we get closer to these modified exams. But I did remember reading somewhere coming out of the superintendent's office that secondary education students would receive anywhere from like 1 to 2 meaningful assignments.
Yes, I've read similar information. I think the biggest question is just how each teacher defines meaningful. That can have a lot of meanings to people, and so we're continuing to see that that's something that's evolving, and this is a question that has been posed, both that I've heard about frequently from students, and so I think it will be addressed at the countywide level with more guidance soon.
Right, and also, like, I work with Montgomery County Education Association, which is like a teachers union, and it's important to realize that it is as hard for teachers right now as it is for us. I did see that message about 2 meaningful assignments, but I would agree with Uma that everyone can interpret it differently, but also it is important to be kind of easy on the teachers and realize that it is hard for them and it's all new. And the thing that MCPS didn't provide a lot of information about is how to set up your Zoom calls, how to make sure everyone, all your students are like equally engaged. That is hard, and they're trying to figure it out, but it takes time, not only for us, but for them too. So we have to be meaningful.
Great. So the next question is from Stephen that was sent in via email, and then we'll take Jenna's question and Joel's. Stephen's question, that's Stephen Austin's question is, as student leaders, I'm curious about your thoughts on the extreme economic impact the COVID pandemic is likely to cause. If the MCPS budget is flat or even down, there may not be enough funds for new programs, hiring may be frozen, and class sizes could grow. How do you plan to anticipate and prioritize an environment like this?
I think I could take that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So one of the candidates for the Board of Education has opened up a really interesting conversation about how the MCPS district-wide boundary analysis, if after using those results to create informed decisions about changes to the boundaries, could actually in turn save money and free up funds where they would have gone otherwise to, portables or extensions for schools that are overcrowded, and how the way that the boundaries are currently drawn is actually making bigger budgetary issues and really making them worse. So if Helena, you wanted to maybe sort of talk a little bit more about what that means in terms of the boundary analysis, potentially saving money for the county or somebody from STEPS who also knows, who is familiar with that concept.
Yeah. Helena, do you want to go, or I can comment on that?
I can quickly jump in and then you can go.
I'll follow up. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So as I understood from that conversation, Claire, the capital budget, a large portion of it is financed through borrowing, and obviously with borrowing comes interest. And with the boundary analysis, if the results are evaluated and implemented appropriately, we wouldn't have to spend as much on infrastructure like portables, resulting in some money freed up from the interest we wouldn't have to pay on that spending. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, Helena is absolutely right. But an also important thing is that a big part of boundary study is understanding the overcrowding in the schools. And we can see that some schools that are pretty close and nearby, they like one school is 70% filled and another one is 110, 120% filled, which is a big problem. And in that second school, so much money goes to portables and to make the education sustainable for that huge amount of kids, while boundary study can shift it a little bit so both schools have equal amount of kids, so infrastructure is used properly that we have right now, and it will definitely cut a lot of spendings on the additional infrastructure that MCPS keeps on adding every single year, like portables.
If I could just jump in on the second part of that question, anticipating for a lack of funds and then prioritizing, I know for a fact that Youth Creating Change will still have a pot of money in its reserve funds that we use now to give grants to students. So in the event that for your social change groups, you find that your normal sources of funding are drying up, or that when you're holding restaurant fundraisers or galas, you notice that not a lot of people are attending, due to their own jobs possibly being compromised, definitely reach out and apply to be a YCC fellow, and we will work with you. We understand that a lot of your organizations are probably going through monetary hardships yourselves, and we'll work with you to kind of make up that funding difference and then move your priorities forward.
Great, and let's take a question from Jenna. Jenna, if you want to unmute.
I was wondering, fortunate event that learning and the pandemic, the county plan on transitioning smoothly into the new semester, as well as incorporating incoming freshmen and making of what the workload level.
I can take this one from our organization's perspective. So I recently sat down with the rest of Moco Pride's team, and we made a concentrated decision that because of the pandemic, a lot of students have more time on their hands. And a lot of students also have the ability to access some online resources and materials. And so a big push for us has been to make a lot of our advocacy more about education and information. And so if it continues into the fall semester, that will continue to be a priority for us. A lot of LGBTQ+ discrimination comes from a place of misinformation or just ignorance. And so this has actually been an invaluable time for us to invest in the educational component of activism and the awareness component of activism. And then in terms of incoming freshmen, I think once again, social media is a powerful asset, as is school SGAs. I'm hoping that school SGAs will be able to create online programs or virtual programs for recruiting new students into different clubs and opportunities. And so I'm hoping that that will also be resolved in the future.
Great, and we had a question from Joel.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm not sure you can comment on this, but I mean, clearly COVID crisis has exposed a lot of inequities that we have in the school system and in Montgomery County, DMV region, and generally the world. So I'm just wondering, do you guys think it's made these inequities like a lot more visible? And also what people were referencing the boundary analysis, I mean, you see some of the same inequities there. So does that give you new drive to fight for, or to fight those inequalities?
Yeah, I can take this. Oh, wait, someone, was that Lauren?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, just, I mean, our group is has completely focused on that right now. So already we see across the nation that 14% of children in the US live in households with food insecurity, and that is a big issue happening right now, access to food. Another problem that we're dealing with is the achievement gap, and that has definitely been exposed with COVID-19. Again, like we said, in our survey, we found that many students are, especially Black, Brown, and students who are struggling are having problems accessing technology, and with that comes a problem of contacting their teachers. And that's part of the reason why the pass-fail system would be so helpful to those group of students. So again, part of what we're focusing on is addressing those social inequities being exposed. We're working with a number of groups across the county and across the DMV area to help students in the situations. Again, organizing a food drive and doing other activities. If Lauren, if you want to add more, definitely.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the mark there. I mean, it's rather unfortunate that we even have to be having these conversations, but these inequities have been present for a long time. It's not just because of the COVID-19 crisis. This has been from the start of our educational systems. It's just remnants of de facto segregation and stigma, and it's kind of all built up into this like giant snowball of inequity. And so that's something that we definitely need to tackle and that we need to have really serious discussions about. And then also just to kind of tie it back to another question I saw in the chat regarding mental health of students. I'm not sure who asked that question, but I feel like everyone is in a situation where their mental health may be struggling just from being in the confinements of the indoors, not being able to talk with friends in a way that we normally do. But I think we also need to consider how much harder this is for communities that are struggling as it is. So, for example, a majority of like immigrant families and people that I'm friends with and everything are living in like single apartments. Very close together with other people, and obviously that makes for very hazardous circumstances just because of how transmittable disease is in the first place. And so when you have that stress, and then you have the stress of not knowing where you're going to find your next meal, even though MCPS has done an amazing job with meal distributions, that's not the case in a lot of areas of the United States. There's also paying rent, and then just the whole transition to online education. So that all accumulates into a lot of anxiety, and I feel like that's one of the major reasons why the county council should put a lot of money toward relief funding and making sure that our kids are taken care of during this time, especially the ones who were struggling as kids.
If I could take it back to Joel's question real quick, I just wanted to add from like a boundary analysis perspective, those students who have been traditionally disadvantaged in like in under-resourced schools, these are the ones that don't have access to Chromebooks, don't have access to Wi-Fi. So yeah, like absolutely this exacerbates the inequities that we already see across the school district.
Yeah. Oh,
Go ahead.
Go. Oh, okay. I wanted to add on to Alana's question. Sorry if I'm not saying that right, about the mental health of students and how the epidemic has impacted that. I do agree with Lauren. However, I just want to say that I believe MCPS has a huge responsibility to students in order to help with mental health. I know that a lot of students, especially because many have to stay at home is not always the best place for students. We have to be careful in addressing their family situations. Some students might not feel safe at home. Some students might not have the best relationship with the members of their household. So I do believe that MCPS and our county does have a large obligation to address those needs to those students.
Could I just briefly take Ella's question about how LGBTQ plus curriculum is going to be implemented into English, history, and health classes? So first and foremost for English and history, we already have created the LGBTQ plus studies course, which gives a comprehensive rundown of LGBTQ plus history, arts, and culture in both the United States and in global society. And so aspects of that in terms of LGBTQ plus literature, both written by LGBTQ plus authors and with LGBTQ plus protagonists, could be incorporated into English classes. And then also a variety of both US and global history is rich with LGBTQ plus cultural traditions and events that aren't frequently discussed about. So many people that we would consider to be famous today were LGBTQ plus, and it's not frequently discussed. And we also see that continued LGBTQ plus discrimination isn't often discussed as an aspect of civil rights, both in the US and in global society. And then in terms of health class, which I would honestly consider probably the biggest error in terms of LGBTQ plus inclusion right now in the education system, we continue to list being gay or being a lesbian as a quote unquote behavior in our health class. And so that's something that needs to change, that is factually and scientifically incorrect. And then we also don't discuss STD prevention tips for LGBTQ plus students or safe sex tips for LGBTQ plus students. So the majority of that class focuses on heterosexual and cisgender experiences, as opposed to necessary dialogue also about the experiences of LGBTQ plus people and their both sexual and romantic experiences and safety.
I just wanted to take a moment to possibly go back to Joel's question and addressing how MSP was actually founded after a couple students recognized the inequalities within our school system. We've always during my internship, that is what I studied about. I studied about how students were not, how opportunities were distributed and how not all students were on the same playing field. And I think if anything, the pandemic sort of showed us how close it is to us. Because even I, as a student who continuously keeps on attempting to learn more and more about the inequalities that plague our county, I don't think I've ever fully understood that my neighbor possibly also does not have a computer. Where although we go to the same school, we live in the same zip code, she just so happens to not have a computer or might not have access to internet. I think it just, if anything, hits home to all of us, making us recognize how close these issues are to us.
Is it all right if I ask a question? Just shift the focus a little.
If we can come back to that, just have some closing remarks from Ananya and Councilmember Hucker, and then we'll come back to answer other questions. But we are over our program time. Ananya?
Yes, thank you. So I'd just like to, again, thank all of the wonderful student leaders who are here as panelists today, talking about the work of their different organizations and why they do what they do. I think especially during this time, when we see student efforts get bat down by some individuals in our community, it's very easy to become cynical and feel that our fight is for nothing. And trust me, I understand what that feeling is like firsthand. So I am grateful to all of you, as I've been watching from afar a little bit this past year, all of the commitment you have to bettering the lives of students in this county, to truly making change for people who may not have a voice to come directly to the table. And not only doing that, but also helping facilitate bringing those voices directly to the table. Our community appreciates you, and I hope you all continue with this fire wherever life takes you. And thank you, Councilmember Hucker, for putting together this wonderful event, and Lynn Harris, of course, for planning this wonderful event and really valuing the student voice, just like the voices of the other constituents in our community. So we are ever grateful to you. Thank you all, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy through this very interesting time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ananya. Thanks, Nate. Thanks to all the panelists tonight. I'm blown away. We covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of topics. We were not going to solve all these challenges tonight, but I want to tell you, I'm inspired by all of you and your energy and your knowledge and the depth of your understanding of the challenges facing the county. I wish all the hundreds of thousands of taxpayers in the county, were on this tonight listening to you, because I think they would be as inspired as I am, and we'd have a whole different sort of political environment in which to make policy. But I learned a lot, as I knew I would, from all of you. I gotta say, I'm counting on all of you I'm grateful that you're here, and at the same time, I'm counting on you to stay involved and stay connected to us, I know Dave can tell us how to do that. You know, we're on Facebook and Twitter. Obviously, we have a page up, townhucker.com/coronavirus, with all the events that we're adding in a real-time environment. We're totally open to your suggestions for other events we should do, if we want to do events for each high school or any individual clubs or any groups of students or in your neighborhoods or with your parents, your cousins, whatever. We want to connect to as many people as possible and get them access to services and help the council to hear their voices at such an important time. We talked a lot about the under-resourced students tonight and all the people on the wrong end of the inequalities inequities in Montgomery County and in MCPS that we don't hear from all the time. We hear from you tonight, not even all of you, and we don't hear from them. And we make better policy if we do. So we need you to be their voice tonight, and we need you to help us connect to them and empower them and raise their voices and amplify their voices so we can have more people part of this dialogue, and that helps us make better policy and puts pressure on the council, frankly, to make better policy and get resources where they really need to be. I can pledge that I'm going to do everything I can to support you and your priorities that we heard tonight, but I really need to be able to count on you to stay with us through this whole crisis and beyond, because the crisis will be over. The health emergency will end whenever the governor says it will, and we'll have a historic recession after that, and we'll have inequities that persist after that, and we'll have health disparities that persist after that, and we'll have discrimination that persists after that, and you all are part of the solution. And honest to God, the folks that are in their 50s and 60s that I talk to all the time, they're not as important as you are to shaping that solution. You're going to be here when they're not. So we really have to work together to do that, to amplify the voice of the people that aren't on this call tonight. My old boss, when I was a brand new community organizer out of college, used to say, I'm trying to give you a pat on the back and a kick in the butt. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I want you to stay involved with us and stay connected so we can have more of these forums, connect to more people, and make better policy. So thank you so much again, Ananya and Nate and Jill and Dave for putting this together, and all of you. And I hope this is the beginning of our conversations and not the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. So I wanted to go back to some of our questions. I know our moderator had to leave, so I'm happy to step in. I think our next question was from Taylor.
So my question, it's directed towards Helena, but please, anyone, feel free to chime in. So it's two-pronged. So first, what steps is your committee taking to promote voting equity, especially for students without access to technology? And second, how are you ensuring a high voter turnout similar to past years for the SMOB election?
So to your first question, I think if students don't have access to technology, it's not even just a question of access to voting, it's a question of access to education. And obviously that's a big problem MCPS has been taking steps to try to solve through their Chromebook distribution program, their Wi-Fi distribution program. And we did postpone the elections. They were originally scheduled for April 22nd, but now they're on May 20th to give time for all of these processes to take place. And I know still so many students do not have access to technology, and schools are working extremely hard to identify these students and make sure they get the resources they need. So we're kind of waiting for that whole process to take place before the elections. And for the second part, to ensure high voter turnout as in past years, every student through their .net, mcpsmd.net account has gotten information, all the candidates and how to vote in the election and the Meet the Candidates video. And we're gonna be heavily pushing on social media, encouraging everyone to make sure to vote in the election. We're gonna use every tool we have because obviously we can't ensure voting as we did previously when everyone was still in school, but we're trying our best.
Great, and our next question is from Eastwood. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, everyone. Good evening to you all. I'm not sure if anyone will be able to answer this question, but I understand that primary school students are not being given, or they're not being given assignments due to the ongoing pandemic. And as someone who works directly with many of them through the Boys and Girls Clubs, I see many different children with a range of learning disabilities. So my question to you guys is, are there any steps or measures being taken to provide assistance to these students? And if not, how does the county plan to prevent the opportunity gap from growing?
Well, sadly, I can't I can't give you official information, or like, because I don't know it, but I can, as a sister of a third grader, I can answer the first part. At least in our district, in Walt Whitman, like around Walt Whitman, the students in elementary schools are given assignments, and he has morning classes, and I think that MCPS did send out information about elementary schools still having classes through Zoom, just like secondary school students have. But about special education and special needs students, definitely we will see inequality gap, right, even growing even more due to this, because they need special attention that many schools provide. But overall, special education programs are underlooked and and they have low resources in so many schools around the county. So it's a problem even outside of quarantine. But now it's even more exaggerated.
And Eastwood, I don't know if this helps to answer your question. This is just like my experience at my school, but I know at least that my teachers are honoring like IEPs, but I'm not sure if MCPS has put out a mandate to say that, like, or I don't know, like how they're gonna make sure that people can honor that. And then also I know that like you can honor IEPs, and yes, that's helpful to students with like ADHD, but what are you going to do for the ones that like with dyslexia, dysgraphia, like things that you can't really help with like over the internet? So that's all that I can really speak to.
At Eastwood, our office would be happy to follow up with the superintendent's office and get back to you. If you can just share your contact information with us. We had another question from I think Pernille. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Okay, my question was, is there a way for students to address like sometimes like the overwhelming amount of work being given out? Because not all of our teachers have like, I wasn't aware that the semester was on a pass-fail for all classes until I went to this meeting. So like, how are we going to get that out to students?
I can take this one both from Moco Pride's perspective and also just from working with MCR in the past and with a variety of other student groups here. So I think there's definitely a need for everyone, both student groups and also the county, to have more accessible options for checking information and for checking resources, because this situation is so fastly developing. I think I would just advise all students to make sure that they check their MCPS email, they read the documents there, because a lot of information is held there. I think also MCPS posts a lot on its Twitter. I wish they did more with Instagram, because I think it'd be more accessible to students. Ditto to the county council as well on that one. And I would also say, in terms of that, if you feel as though there's an overwhelming amount of work, and this really goes for everyone, contact your teachers. They're here to help you. They're struggling with a variety of things as well in terms of mental health, helping their own kids. And so I think it really is something that is always evolving, but there's also some leeway to be able to have more personal contacts with teachers on this.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Alana is next.
I had a follow-up question to my earlier question about mental health. What steps should the county take to combat the declining mental health among students during this time? This is to anyone.
I can take that question. I think that the county, so part of what I've seen, because I'm also part of some other mental health groups in the area, I think that what's making a lot of students stressed is lack of information, just like what was said in the previous question, where students don't know what's going on. Another problem is, of course, this quarantine, taking people's stress, staying at home, I think what the county should do, from my perspective, is one, put out more information more frequently, and also try to find different platforms to put that out on, because obviously if you don't have as well internet access, or again, if English isn't your first language, and yes, the county does a good job of translating, but again, there's still issues with that. It's not always correct. That the county should really put more time to do that, putting out more information. I also think that they should try to hold more webinars just like this, where they're educating parents and telling them what's going on, and making sure that just checking in with students. Teachers, again, they're doing a really good job of checking in with their own students and talking with them and just having that kind of contact. But yes, I'd say more outreach, more education, and just overall more contact.
Also, specifically for our younger students, like elementary school level students, I know that I would say that this has hit them almost as hard as it has hit high school students, just because they're so young. They're so new to life, and they have never heard of anything like this before, much less experienced it. So I would recommend that the county maybe put together like similar to what Andrew said, like an official presentation, and then distribute it out to like the elementary schools and like the principals of the elementary schools, and then they can add it into like their weekly newsletter maybe. And so the parents can show the kids the presentation, obviously make it kid friendly, so that way it's understandable but also informative at the same time. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And also it's important to reach out to your counselors. Don't forget that they're still working and they're free to ask any questions or any struggles that you go through. And even in my household, me as a high school student, I have an elementary school student, I have adults, it is a hard time for everyone mentally, so it's important to take some mindful minutes. And on MCPS YouTube, I believe, they did create a podcast with mindful minutes, so you can look up those, or just search up something online and take care of your mental health just as much as of social distance and physical health.
I'd also recommend, sorry if someone said this, my internet cut out for a second, but just checking MCPS's Be Well 365 initiative. I believe they have a web page for that. I'm on my high school's newspaper, and so I linked that to one of our articles. It's actually pretty comprehensive, pretty informative, and definitely extremely positive. I know Ananya prioritized in her SMOB minutes referencing MCPS's Be Well 365 initiative. It is also very kid-friendly, so I think that addressed introducing the facts of this pandemic in a kid-friendly manner. So I would definitely recommend checking out MCPS's Be Well 365 site, or if you're writing your article, linking that website in your article.
Just briefly, because I know Jenna Bloom from Sherwood has a question. I'd like to really emphasize the importance of, especially high school SGAs. As the Albert Einstein High School school-wide SGA secretary, I've been helping to run the Instagram. And we've been trying to keep our students engaged. And I understand that social media is not always the best way to improve mental health, but SGA Instagram accounts are a really good way to reach students and to engage them in interesting activities.
Sorry, just one more point on this topic. I think teachers have a really important role in all of this and helping maintain a sense of normalcy. I know a lot of my teachers have personally reached out and shown their willingness to be more understanding of the current situation. So I don't know if this is something like on a county-wide level, but I think individually teachers should reach out to their students and let them know that they are going to be more understanding considering the situation we're in.
Also, on the topic of distributing information in a more appropriate way, I think it's actually better if our county sort of figures out a way in which, rather than just throwing out just like a bunch of emails and throwing a lot of information that sort of students sort of lose themselves in. As I know, I receive like a bunch of emails from in my MCPS account to the point where sometimes I don't know which ones to read. I think it might be important and more effective if they try to sort of concise the information, and maybe rather than releasing information almost every single day, possibly just having one day dedicated to sort of just throwing out the information, but like like it was said before, in a more friendly way, so all students are able to understand it. Yeah.
Final point on this topic of mental health. Really sorry. There's also a lot of great organizations that are doing work with mental health right now. Of course, Every Mind has worked very closely with MCPS schools, and also the Advocacy Prevention Network. There's a lot of organizations right now that are doing work with mental health, specifically relating to Corona. So again, I would advocate for people to use those resources.
I just have one other final point in this question. I'm sorry, I think all of us care deeply about mental health, and so we all have a lot of passionate responses to it. So my organization, Moco Pride, will be hosting a forum on mental health with MCPS officials and heads of school psychology and some of the leaders of the school psychology department there to talk about MCPS's mental health resources on April 28th. So I would encourage everyone here to push that out to their networks. I think it will be a great opportunity to both learn more about mental health strategies and also just have a space to discuss your current mental health and your beliefs on mental health with fellow students right
now. I was wondering that I know that the pandemic has been very negative and it's caused a lot of stress in these times of everyone having to social distance and stay at home. But as student activists, what examples have you seen of like the pandemic bringing people together and examples of the kind of positives that you've seen from the coronavirus and like how that's inspired you to keep moving and keep like fighting for what you believe in?
First of all, like,
I guess I can start. For one, our organization, I can just use that as an example. Despite the challenges that, of course, we've seen with this outbreak, we have seen a tremendous amount of growth. This time has allowed us to really contact people and just grow as a group and unite with other groups across the DMV area. Fighting for this cause. In fact, that's the reason why we rebranded. We used to be called the Moco Student Alliance for Immigration Advocacy, but because we are able to reach so many people during this time, we changed our name to the DMV Student Alliance for Immigration Advocacy. That's just one example from our perspective.
Yeah, I would say too that my whole organization. Sorry, did you want to go?
No, go ahead. You can go first.
So the whole purpose of YCC is to support you guys, to support all of your wonderful social justice initiatives. So the fact that you still have the motivation to keep going and to keep fighting for advocacy and to keep, raising the alarm on all of these social inequities in our county and beyond is just truly inspiring to us, and it just reaffirms that our mission to support all of you is essential. So of course, if this, heaven forbid, continues into the fall, we'll still be here online supporting you. Like I said, we will still try to dole out our funds in the event that you guys need help, monetarily with your initiatives. And we're just going to be here to support you. Well, maybe if this, needs to take place online, if we continue distance learning, pushing out all of our modules, through emails, through a listserv, on our Instagram, on our Twitter, etc. We're really here to support you, and it's just really inspiring to all of us on the YCC leadership team that all of you guys are so committed to continuing your work in these most challenging times. So just thank you for that, and that is really giving us strength and uniting us as an organization as we see you guys continuing to fight your good fights.
And if I could... Oh, Lauren, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, no, just really quickly. I feel like from like a broader sense, not even just from like a student advocacy perspective, I feel like this entire situation, because everyone is going through the exact same or experiencing the exact same thing. I feel like there's almost like a sense of camaraderie and just, I want to say hope. And I feel like everyone is just looking for that light at the end of the tunnel. So I feel like that has been especially helpful to me to know that people are experiencing the exact same thing that I am. And yet there's still people that I can reach out to and that I can rely on that are going through the exact same thing. And just really quickly, in response to Joel's question, how we're remaining respectful toward the COVID crisis. I feel like social media, at least for my organization, has been a great asset to us just because, well, first of all, everyone is on their phones all day now. So it's kind of like the only thing to do. So we've definitely utilized Instagram, we've utilized Twitter to get our messages across. We've been specifically on our Twitter handle, we've been talking about the DACA decision that's coming up in the next couple of days, most likely. And we've been kind of talking about what our plans are in the case that the decision comes back unfavorable. So that has also allowed us to spread exponentially, as Andrew kind of mentioned earlier. So.
And if I could just add on to that, what a great question, Jenna. I like to keep it positive. First steps, we're such a new organization, and like, you know, one of the real killers of like new organizations is like a lack of momentum. And if people were really busy in school, especially with like AP exams coming up, we probably wouldn't have been able to have like the success that we've had. But people have been able to bring so much energy and like just like time to, you know, building our organization. So we definitely wouldn't have had that if it weren't for this.
Yeah. Jump off of, oh, Sonia, go ahead.
Thanks, Uma. Because I think that just us coming even here today is a great sign of how student leadership is more united. Yes, we face even more struggles right now. And I want to shout out all the organizations that came and that work outside of this. I know that MCI is doing a lot of stuff online, and even Moco Pride, Uma. I think that's amazing to do like Netflix parties and all. So yeah, and it's important to also look at the local level and help your SGAs out and make sure that the school spirit stays out as well as your leadership county-wide spirit.
Yeah. Just to jump off of that, I think one of the most exciting things from leading Moco Pride has been I've actually seen a lot of new faces during the pandemic attending our online meetings and doing online advocacy with us. Oftentimes for LGBTQ plus students, it's hard to make it to physical meetings or come because of either a lack of parent or family support or feeling as though going to a physical meeting is a form of coming out as an LGBTQ plus community member. And so it's been actually a lot of students who are in either closeted family households, etc., have been able to come to our online meetings. So our group has actually diversified a lot and gained some perspective. I also think that this pandemic has really, as a lot of people said, has humanized government officials, it's humanized our teachers, it's humanized other organizations. And so I think from Moco Pride's perspective, that's meant for us that we need to do both kind of the hardcore advocacy that we've tended to do in the past with coursework and with community advocacy and legislative connections, but then also have opportunities for people to just get education and also just have fun during an insane time.
I wanted to touch on Eastwood's question, which was because of COVID-19, or Eastwood, do you want to explain that question first? If you're still on.
Yeah, I'm here, sorry. So, I mean, I can read over the question too, just for those who might not have seen it. So my question was, due to COVID-19, xenophobia has been running rampant through our community and on social media as well, without any scientific or factual basis. So my question to anybody who would like to answer it is, what steps do you guys believe should be taken to discourage these baseless rumors, and why have they not been taken already?
I think if I could just touch on that question a little bit. I wanted to say to the second part of that question, I do believe that people want to stick to their values, and sometimes that tends to be more ignorant than out of good faith. So I think that's the reason why some people choose to run with xenophobic rumors and false facts. And I do think some steps to discourage these are just to spread through, especially student advocacy groups, spread truthful information with your facts, and do that through social media and do that through families as well. Like if you see someone in your family who might have thoughts that don't have any fact behind them or are hurtful towards any community who has no fault in the COVID-19 crisis, just on trying to educate with them and just to have a conversation with them about what why they believe what they do, and just try and discourage them from that. I do also believe it's important for school systems to push out information that is true and factual and doesn't hurt any community as well. Thank you for the question, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Adding on to that, I know Moco for Change has launched the COVID-19 updates that are factual and include data to help, like push away some of this misinformation that's being spread. And kind of back to Jenna's thing about how COVID-19 has helped unite all of us. Moco for Change has launched the Alumni Pairing Program, which Claire briefly talked about at the beginning, which has gotten us to unite alumni and seniors. And it's been really incredible to see how willing Moco alumni are to help seniors in this time of need. And it's actually something we're considering pursuing, not just in times of crisis, but in the future because of all the amazing feedback we've gotten.
If I could, I wanted to touch on Joel's question about remaining respectful during the COVID-19 crisis. I do believe, especially with Milk for Change, with the boundary analysis, COVID-19 has kind of not necessarily revealed the cracks in our education system and our boundary system in general, but just kind of expose them to the public as well. And I believe that in terms of that, we are kind of using the COVID-19 as our backup of saying like, hey, this is happening, and these are the reasons why we should fix our education system and the inequalities that students face normally. I do think COVID-19 has kind of pushed for that more, and it sort of kind of relates back to the fact that many students in Montgomery County don't feel that they have equal education to their peers and equal education in general. So, yeah.
So just to wrap up here, I think that was all of our questions. I want to thank all of our students, the panelists, the reporters, the participants. I think so many of us already knew this, but this town hall tonight and this conversation has just made abundantly clear that students should be front and center to every decision impacting students and schools in our county. You all are amazing, thoughtful, and fearless. We were so excited to give you all this platform, and I hope we have many more opportunities to work with you all, not only during this crisis, but going forward. And I want to thank Council Vice President Hucker and Lynn and Jill for their work as well, organizing this. And we will post this on montgomerycountymd.gov, as well as other channels. You can check Councilmember Hucker's Facebook or Twitter as well tomorrow. And if you have any other questions that we can direct to our students, you can email us at tom.hucker@montgomerycountymd.gov. So thanks again, and I hope everyone has a good night and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.